Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to talk about char pointers, const pointers, and a pointer as well, const. So if you enjoyed today's video, please feel free to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and if you have any suggestions or you want me to make any certain videos on a certain topic, please drop that in the comments. Okay, so let's get started and talk about a char pointer and what is a char pointer. So a char pointer is basically just a pointer. Of type char as we see. So let's say we go ahead and create a char pointer and we want to initialize it to a string. So how do we do that? Let's say we're going to initialize it to hello world. It'll give you an error, right? So what do you do? In this case, you have to make a const char pointer. And let's say you have a string variable, call it hello world, and boom, call it str equal, yep. And let's say we want to point at str. Is that going to work? No. Let's say we want to point it at const str. Is that going to work? No. So in this case, what you want to do is basically initialize it with the string you want it to be initialized to. Now, a little different than other pointers. Let's say we want to get the value of the char pointer. Um, in previous video, when you go ahead and just print out the value of char pointer, a different pointer I mean, what you would do is dereference it, as we talked about the topic of dereferencing. You would go ahead and dereference the pointer. Now in this case, it's different with char pointers. When you dereference a char pointer, what you'll do is, oh, you get the first index in the string when you dereference it. So let's say you want to get the entire string, all you do is just basically print the variable. So that's something to be careful when you are working with char pointers. Okay, this is very brief, so let's get started and get into the meat of this video. Let's talk about const pointers. So what is a const pointer? First of all, let's create an integer variable and let's set that to 10 and into another variable and set that to 20. Okay, and let's go ahead and create a const integer pointer. Now, something to be mindful of. It might be a little confusing. You might have seen this, and you have seen this, and you might have just asked yourself, what is the difference between the const that comes before the data type and the const that comes after? Let's see that. Okay, so when the const comes after, it means not the pointer itself is const, but the pointer is pointing at a const variable. What does that mean? Let's say we go ahead and point the first pointer that we have, let's call it pointer to const, and then we are going to set that to the memory address of var. Now, in this case, when we say that the pointer is pointing to a const variable, that means if you try to dereference, for example, let's say we want to dereference the value of var is, and you simply just print out the value of var and you'll get 10, right? But let's say we want to go ahead and change the value of var. Let's say we want to say that the pointer to cos, we want to dereference it and set it to 5. Can we do that? We cannot. Why is that? It says that the expression must be a modifiable value, which means that this is a const, right? Because the pointer is pointing to a const variable. So that's something to be aware of, is that when you are pointing to a const variable, obviously the variable is const, so you cannot change the value of that variable at that memory address. So let's say we want the pointer to const, however, to point at a different variable. Can we do that? Yes, we can. Why? Because the pointer itself is not a const, it only points at a const variable. So, but let's see and look at a const pointer, and we are going to point it at var, right? What does that mean? Let's go ahead and comment this out so we can run our program. So now our const pointer is pointing at var, and this pointer itself is a const, right? So let's say we want to change the value at that memory address to 15, okay? 15, and let's go ahead, put this, the memory address of, well, actually, yeah, we can keep it var, and then we are going to print it out. As you see, the value of var is 15. We were able to change the value at that memory address. Why? That is because the pointer itself is is a const. It's not pointing to a const variable. However, let's say we want to do the same thing that we did here in the previous pointer. We wanted to point to a different variable, right? So let's say we want it to point to a different variable. And let's want it to point to var2. What do we get? We get expression must be a modifiable value. What does that mean? The pointer itself cannot point to something else because the pointer itself is a const, right? So this is something to be aware of. So just to go ahead and go over what we just explained is that when the const is before the data type, that means the pointer is pointing to a const variable. But when the const comes after the data type, that means that the pointer itself is const. It's a little confusing at first, I get it. It is confusing. When I learned it, it was confusing for me too. But once you practice it, you'll get the hang of it. So now let's say you have a const pointer that is pointing to a const value. How do we do that? We simply just add, we call it pointer, we just do this. However, you do need to initialize it. Let's say we initialize it to var. What does that mean? In that case, you can't change the value of var, sorry, you can't change the value of pointer. Neither can you make the pointer point at a different variable. You can't do either or you are stuck with this, right? So to give you some examples on when you would use, for example, a const pointer or pointer to a const is when you don't want, for example, let's say you want to use a const pointer, but you're not sure when. Use it when you want to make sure that your pointer, it's not going to point to a different variable, or you don't want a different programmer to use that pointer to point at something else, right? Or the user. Um, you want to ensure that it's going to point to the same thing. And if you have a pointer to a const, you use that when you ensure that the variable that you are pointing to is not going to be changed, right? That could be very useful when you're working with sensitive data and you are working with pointers. So, if you enjoyed today's video, please drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and hopefully in the upcoming video I'm going to talk more about pointers, and then also I'm going to make a playlist on functions on references. So I'll see you in the next video.